This video is sponsored by Card Kingdom. You can visit their store by using my referral link in the description below. Hi everyone, I'm NAZAHN, and today is Monday, and that means it's time for another MTG Top 10. In some episodes of this series, I look at the most expensive cards in a particular category and explain what makes them so expensive, and that's what we're doing today, with a look at the 10 most expensive equipment. Before we get into that though, let me tell you about this video's special sponsor, Aura. An app that is great equipment for you to have if you're interested in protecting your privacy. Unlike the equipment on this list, it isn't expensive either. If you use my special link in the description or scan the QR code on the screen, you can try the app for a free 2-week trial and start protecting your privacy right now. If you decide to continue with Aura after the trial, you'll also find that it is very affordable, especially when compared to its competitors. If you use my link, you're also supporting the channel at the same time, so let me tell you a little bit more about Aura. These days, there's information about you everywhere, even in places you wouldn't expect. We've all Googled ourselves and found that the internet knows far more about us than it should. One of Aura's many features is that it can find and identify the data brokers out there who have made this information available. It can even make it so you stop receiving junk mail and getting robocalls. In addition to that, Aura also features a VPN, a password manager, a real-time credit monitor, and much, much more. Again, check out the link in the description or scan the QR code on the screen to give it a try while also supporting the channel. Alright, let's get back to the video. Equipment was originally introduced in 2003's Mirrodin. It's an artifact subtype that comes with an equip cost that allows you to attach that equipment to your creature to enhance it in some way. Since making their debut, they've taken on a prominent role in pretty much all of Magic's formats. There are two things to keep in mind with this video. First, I used the original printing of a card, so various promos and variants aren't included. Second, the prices that appear in the video are Card Kingdom near mint prices. Alright, let's take a look at the 10 most expensive equipment in Magic the Gathering. At number 10, it is EMBERCLEAVE, which costs about $12. For 4 generic and 2 red mana, this legendary equipment grants +1/+1 trample and double strike to an equipped creature, and it has an equip cost of 3 generic mana. It also has flash and costs 1 less to cast for each attacking creature you control, and attaches to a creature when it enters the battlefield. In other words, you can play this for a whole lot less than 6 mana most of the time, and you get a free equip right away. It's a powerhouse and really aggressive deck since you can cast it very cheaply and do it at instant speed to almost always win combat and/or inflict massive amounts of damage on the opponent. It was a format-defining card in Standard and sees heavy play in both Pioneer and Commander. In both formats, it's an auto-include in every creature-heavy red deck. At number 9, it is Sword of the ANIMIST, which gives us another legendary equipment. This one costs about $15. This one costs 2 generic mana to play and 2 to equip. It gives the equipped creature +1/+1, and when it attacks, you search your library for a basic land and put it onto the battlefield tapped. This equipment is a great way to gain access to ramp in any color. It never saw play in any 60-card constructed formats, but it sees a ton of play in Commander, appearing in over 131,000 decks on EDHREC. Thanks to its colorless identity, you can play it in any deck, and it's a great way for non-green decks to gain access to ramp. There is massive demand for this card in Commander, and that's what's driving the price. At number 8, it is Konda's Banner, which costs about $16. It's also our 3rd consecutive legendary equipment. It costs 2 to play and 2 to equip. It can only be attached to a legendary creature, and creatures that share a color or creature type with the equipped creature get +1/+1. This is another card that didn't see any play in 60-card constructed, but it was a card that feels like it was tailor-made for Commander. While the format existed back in 2004 when this was printed, it was very far from the mainstream and hadn't been endorsed by Wizards of the Coast at all. But Kamigawa Block had a legendary theme, just like Commander does. Obviously, putting this on a Commander in a tribal deck can result in a massive boost for your entire board. While demand for this card is nowhere near the level of Sword of the Animist, it is from a fairly old set and has never been reprinted, so the demand is pretty high in relation to the supply. At number 7, it is UMEZAWA'S JITTE, which costs about $17. It's also yet another legendary equipment. So far, this list feels like it's actually about legendary equipment, but it's just about equipment more broadly. This is arguably the best equipment ever printed. It gains charge counters when the creature it is equipped to does damage, and you can then cash in those charge counters for one of 3 abilities. You can use them to pump your creature, you can use them to weaken and frequently kill your opponent's creature, or you can use them to gain life. One of the nasty things about the JITTE is its controller can just sit around accumulating counters and really put you in a bad spot, because they have 3 different, fairly impactful effects that they can use at any time at instant speed. What's more is, it doesn't actually have to be equipped to something to use those abilities, which means you can offer up trades where you're always going to come out ahead. As a result of all this power, the JITTE has been a multi-format all-star, achieving success in most formats and decks that run lots of creatures, since they are of course necessary to power equipment. In Block Standard and Extended, this meant it was primarily featured in a variety of aggro decks. It caused Extended to be way too homogeneous, and when the Modern format was created in 2011, the JITTE was put on the preemptive ban list to keep that from happening in that format, and it remains banned to this day. However, the JITTE has gone on to amazing success in Legacy, where it's usually featured in decks using Stoneforge Mystic, since she can search up the powerful equipment whenever you think you might need it. The most popular homes for it have been Death and Taxes and Stoneblade. It's even found some success in Vintage, where it's been featured in Eldrazi Aggro, Ravager Shops, and the mono-white Initiative deck that just got banned out of the format. Put simply, UMEZAWA'S JITTE has an impressive competitive history and continues to be heavily played in multiple 60-card constructed formats today. Add to that the fact that it also sees a lot of play in EDH, and the fact it's never been reprinted in a non-premium set, and you have a recipe for one of the most expensive equipments in Magic. If it ever gets unbanned in Modern, something that I don't think is impossible, the price will likely climb even higher. At number 6, it is the REAVER CLEAVER, which costs around $21 and certainly has the silliest name of any card on the list. It also happens to be yet another legendary equipment. Anyway, the Cleaver costs 2 generic and a red, and 3 generic to equip, and it gives the equipped creature +1/+1 in trample, and makes it so when that creature deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, you get that many treasure tokens. Basically, this equipment makes a creature into more of a threat while also ramping your mana and providing lots of artifacts and or sacrifice fodder, which is awesome. The Cleaver is from the Dominaria United Commander Precons, which means the only 60-card formats it's legal in are Legacy and Vintage, and it isn't powerful enough to see play in those formats. However, it has quickly caught on in Commander, a format where you can find all sorts of silly things to do with a bunch of mana. It's especially attractive to red decks with equipment or artifact themes, and there are plenty of those. Even though it is a fairly new card, it isn't around in huge numbers, since thus far it's only been available in that Legends Legacy Commander Precon. Basically, many red decks want to run this, but it's hard to find. At number 5, it is Thornbite Staff, which costs $22, and it's also our first non-legendary equipment. However, it does come with another card type. It's a tribal artifact. Basically, this means it also has a creature type, in this case, Shaman, and that means that cards that interact with that particular creature type also synergize with the staff. Anyway, it costs 2 generic to cast and 4 to equip, and the equipped creature gains an activated ability that costs 2 generic, and you tap that creature to do 1 damage to any target, and when a creature dies in a turn, you untap the creature. You can also attach it to a shaman for free when it enters the battlefield. This can allow you to pick off small creatures quite effectively, and even gives you a way to finish off the opponent. This is another card that hasn't seen play in 60-card constructed formats, so its price is largely a result of how much EDH players want to get their hands on it. This is great in EDH because there are a lot of really cool combos you can do with the card, especially with creatures who tap and sacrifice other creatures. The most notable example is Prime Speaker Vannifar, who taps and sacrifices a creature to search your library for a creature with mana value equal to that creature's +1. So if you put this on Vannifar, you can just constantly search up creatures and sacrifice them, which is usually enough to win you the game. This is just one combo of many though, as the staff has a whole lot of cool things it can do. This has led to it seeing play in more than 22,000 decks in EDH Rec, and it's a card that has never received a reprint, so there just aren't very many of them out there. At number 4, it is Shadowspear, which costs about $25, and it also gives us yet another legendary artifact. This equipment gives you a ton of value for its mana cost. It costs 1 generic, has an equip cost of 2, and gives the equipped creature +1/+1, trample, and lifelink. That combination of keywords is great because it makes virtually any creature far more significant, and if your creature was already good, it makes it into a must-kill threat. Lifelink can put the game completely out of reach in many matchups. The spear can also shut off hexproof and indestructibility, which does come up on rare occasions. From the moment it was printed in 2020, it started to see play in 60-card formats, and this became even more pronounced after Urza's Saga was printed in 2021. The Saga's Chapter 3 lets you tutor up an artifact with a mana value of 0 or 1, and most decks that run Urza's Saga in Modern and Legacy run a suite of cheap artifacts to grab, including the SHADOWSPEAR. It even sees some play in Vintage. Basically, the Spear is played in every 60-card format it's legal in, and it's heavily played in some of them, and it's also in very high demand in EDH, appearing in over 90,000 decks on EDHREC. The demand for SHADOWSPEAR is about as high as it can possibly be, as anyone who plays a format that isn't standard is interested in picking one of these up. At number 3, it is Hammer of NAZAHN, which costs about $28, and, funnily enough, it's another legendary equipment. This equipment loves other equipment. When it or another equipment enters the battlefield, you can attach it to a creature for free. It costs 4 to cast and 4 to equip, and gives the equipped creature +2/+0, and indestructibility. Obviously, the first time you play it, you don't need to be worried about that equip cost. It sees minimal play in Legacy, but is in high demand in EDH, where if you're interested in building an equipment deck, this is a must-have. It does a great job of protecting your commander and other key creatures, while making all of your equipment far better. It also isn't available in massive quantities, as it was printed in the Commander 2017 Precon and in Double Masters, and neither of those are sets that were produced on the same level as a standard release set. At number 2, it is Champion's Helm, which costs $33. This 3-mana equipment costs 1 to equip, and it gives the equipped creature +2/+2, and if it's legendary, it also gains hexproof. This card was tailor-made for Commander. It was printed in Commander 2011, which was the first ever Commander set. This makes it one of the first cards specifically designed for the format. Obviously, it does a good job of protecting your commander from your opponent being able to target it, which is pretty powerful. It has, of course, never been played in 60-card constructed formats, and right now it isn't even that widely played in EDH, especially for a colorless card. In the 12 years since the Helm was printed, we've received many more efficient ways to protect legendary creatures. Right now, it's generally only seeing play in Legendary Matters decks. However, the card is not very easy to get your hands on. The Commander 2011 printing is the only time it was printed in a significant number at all, as the only other reprint came as a Kaladesh invention, and those are incredibly rare. And at number 1, I actually have 9 cards. All of the cards in the Sword of X and X Mega cycle. A Mega cycle is one that has been printed across a really long period of time, across multiple sets. The cycle began way back in 2004's Darksteel, and it's only going to get completed this year in March of the Machine. In fact, by the time you see this video, that card might have been revealed. As you've moved through the list, you've probably been wondering why no swords have shown up, and now you know why. If I had given each of these their own slot, the list would have been far less interesting. Fire and Ice, Feast and Famine, and Truth and Justice would have been the top 3, and 4 other swords would have made the list. So, yeah, I put all 9 of them together here so that we had more to talk about. Each of the cards in this cycle costs 3 to cast and 2 to equip. They give +2/+2 when equipped, and protection from 2 colors. Every time the equipped creature does combat damage, you also get 2 effects. These all have an incredible rate and give you absurd amounts of value. If it isn't destroyed, it's usually going to win you the game. As a result, they're all in very high demand in both EDH and constructed formats. So those are the most expensive equipment in Magic the Gathering. If you want to own any of these cards, check out the description where you can find a direct Card Kingdom link for each card that appeared in the video. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like it and share it. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, consider doing so. And if you want to catch up on past MTG top 10s, including many more that look at the most expensive cards in the game, you should see a playlist on your screen shortly. Thanks for watching.